As we know it, most of the world population loves to watch movies, especially those from the MCU studio, making them one of the most viewed movie company. That being said, let's get into ranking their Phase 3 movies. Let's go into the video. #23. The Incredible Hulk 2008. The forgotten Marvel film followed closely from the success of Iron Man, but relative to the other films in the series, it was a critical and commercial flop. Edward Norton did a perfectly fine job as Bruce Banner, but the story goes that he wanted more creative control than a tightly related web of movies would allow, and so he was replaced by Mark Ruffalo before Avengers Assemble 4 years later. The film feels very dark and gloomy compared to the brightness of later efforts, and the CGI has not aged well. But most importantly, the recasting of such a different actor also means that the events of this film have largely been ignored ever since. There were a number of planted seeds that never bore fruit, and Banner's emotional backstory and relationship with Betty Ross, played by Liv Tyler, is never mentioned again. #22. Thor: The Dark World 2013. One of the things you realize when you sit down and actually rank all 23 MCU films is how few duds there are. Kevin Feige and colleagues have done a remarkable job of turning out pretty solid 7 out of 10 pictures, and there are few genuinely bad entries in the series. But this is one of them. The Dark World was beset by problems with the start, with rewrites and changes of director, and the plot, featuring dark elves, frost monsters, and a malicious substance called the Ether, all feels a bit distant. It's the lowest rated MCU film on IMDb. #21. Iron Man 3 2013. Robert Downey Jr.'s last solo outing as Iron Man just edges it as the worst of the bunch, although it was a close-run thing. The plot revolves around Tony Stark's post-traumatic stress disorder in the wake of the Battle of New York, and sees him take on the Mandarin, a mysterious figure who turns out to be a debauched actor in a television studio, played with all the respect that plot twist deserves by Ben Kingsley. #20. Iron Man 2 2010. It's always a tough job trying to follow an initial hit. Iron Man 2 didn't manage to emulate its predecessor's success. The title sees Downey Jr. revise his role in the metallic suit, but rather than offering the explosive uncertainty of the first film, it's more about regulation. The US government wants Stark's suit and spends too much time worrying about what will happen if its tech falls into the wrong hands. They spend so long pestering Stark that a new threat emerges without their knowledge, something that would be unlikely with the country's vast surveillance capabilities. #19. Doctor Strange 2016. Driven but smug New Yorker neurosurgeon Stephen Strange has his career upended after a car crash devastates his hands. In a bid to reconquer his lost deafness, Strange travels to a monastery in Kathmandu, whose resident mystics are rumored to have mastered sorcery. After meeting the monastery's chief warlock, the Ancient One, Strange forgets about the smashed hands and gets into ancient books, exploring the astral plane, and shooting green beams from his fingers. The appearance of a transcendental baddie hell-bent on destroying the magical shields protecting Earth from interdimensional villains triggers wizardry battles galore. The visually ingenious gem introduces Benedict Cumberbatch into MCU, but this isn't enough to save the film from a low ranking. #18. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 2017. The second outing of Star-Lord, Gamora, Groot and Co. is fine, it's just fine. It's not one of the total duds exactly, but Volume 2 does suffer from being something of a by-numbers superhero story of daddy issues in space. You know, the ones. Whereas the fun of the first Guardians was enhanced by the sheer surprise at the vibes emanating from the screen, the casting and the comedy, the 2017 edition tried much the same moves and didn't stick the landing. Or the middle bit. Still a groovy movie to hang out in, but, sadly, quite predictable. #17. Captain America: The First Avenger 2011. A sepia-toned love story, The First Avenger follows Steve Rogers' transformation from scrawny to super, with the help of a special serum. Its historical setting means it's quite different in tone to many of the other entries in the series, but maybe that's a good thing. Critics praised its depiction of the 1940s. Of all the films in the series, this perhaps feels the most coherent as a standalone flick. #16. Avengers: Age of Ultron 2015. A joyous jumble of a movie in which the Avengers start to really click as a team. Stark's mad scientist playing God routine spirals out of control when he blends Asgardian heirlooms with AI and advanced robotics. The team ends up having to battle Ultron, a part Terminator part Skynet abomination with some unsurprising designs on the future of humankind, i.e. extinction. That Ultron the bad robot has a couple of rogue superheroes doing his bidding provides extra fun. After the monster bot is obliterated and the rogues are won over to the other side, a glimpse of Thanos' purple mug reminds us that this was likely part of a wider plot, but then again, isn't everything in the MCU part of a wider plot? 15. Captain America, Civil War 2016. Although Cap's name is on the front, Civil War feels more like an ensemble Avengers story, with a huge cast of characters split into rival factions by the Sokovia Accords, tighter controls on superheroes brought in after Tony Stark's rogue AI dropped an entire city in Age of Ultron. Stark, cowed by his role in creating Ultron, is on the side of the government with the help of Black Widow, Black Panther, Vision and Spiderman, while Steve Rogers and his team, Ant-Man, Hawkeye, Wanda Maximoff, probably not the favorites on paper, go rogue to track down Hydra's helmet Zemo and bring in Bucky Barnes. 14. Ant-Man and the Wasp 2018. The success of Ant-Man sparked an unexpected sequel, which takes the series even deeper into the quantum realm than the first film. The title character's ability to shrink and grow on demand makes for some visually arresting fight scenes, and it carries through the humor and levity from the first film, but the actual plot, if you interrogate it for even a second, is deeply silly, although perhaps that's what we all needed after the snap. Although it came out after Infinity War, most of the action takes place beforehand, with the exception of a stunning post-credits scene. 13. Thor 2011. Chris Hemsworth's Thor provides the comedic light relief in many of the newer MCU movies, but his first iteration, in this Kenneth Branagh-helmed story, had a much more serious vibe. At the start of the film, Thor is exiled on Earth and deemed unworthy to wield his hammer, which has crashed into the desert in New Mexico. He strikes up a romance with astrophysicist Dr. Jane Foster, Natalie Portman, who has come to investigate. Tom Hiddleston's Loki steals the show, but it's all a little too serious. 12. Captain America, The Winter Soldier 2014. This film felt vital and important when it was released, but looking back it merges into a general blur of close-quarters combat and severed limbs. It follows Captain America's attempts to track down the Winter Soldier, a mysterious and powerful assassin who turns out to be his close personal friend Bucky Barnes, who was conveniently also frozen for large sections of the intervening 70 years and has been brainwashed by the evil Hydra. A rehabilitated Winter Soldier appears in both Infinity War and Endgame, and the actor Sebastian Stan has a few films left on his contract, so it might be worth re-watching this one for future reference. 11. Avengers Assemble 2012. Thanks to the MCU, crossovers have become so frequent now that it's easy to forget the impact of seeing Iron Man, Thor, Captain America and a recast Hulk combine forces in the Battle of New York. Avengers Assemble, as it's known in the UK, delivers some great moments during the Battle of New York, which becomes a key plot point in the next phase of the story, and in many of the spin-off television series. The film wouldn't work without the strength of the supporting characters, including Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow, and Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye, but it's Mark Ruffalo's quieter, more measured take on Banner that provides the best moment. 10. Avengers, Infinity War 2018. A decade of careful breadcrumbs planted across dozens of movies culminating in a jaw-dropping finale, remarkable both in terms of its ambition and execution. Infinity War brought together pretty much every character that had been seen on screen in the previous 10 years to take on Thanos and stop his plan to wipe out half of all life in the universe. The pitched battle between the forces of Earth and an alien army was stunning cinema, and the shocking cliffhanger ending was one of the biggest cultural moments of the year. 9. Spider-Man, Far From Home 2019. The most recent entry, and the first of Phase 4, follows Peter Parker as he attempts to live some semblance of a normal teenage life after the traumatic events of Avengers Endgame. But a class trip to Europe and a chance to share his true feelings with MJ Zendaya goes awry when Earth is besieged by elementals, beings of pure fire, earth, air and water, and Spider-Man is forced to team up with the enigmatic Mysterio, Jake Gyllenhaal, to protect his classmates in various European landmarks. 8. Avengers Endgame 2019. There's a moment in the event movie to Endgame all event movies when you realize that what writers Stephen McFeely and Christopher Marcus have done is to go full Harry Potter and the Cursed Child all over the MCU. If your mind could throw up a little bit in its mouth, it would. Once you learn to accept this, Hail Hydra, and a few others, you can settle in. Okay, once you get past the glum first 45 minutes, you can settle in for Wise Stark, Professor Hulk, the controversial Fat Thor, Doctor Strange holding up one finger, Black Widow and Captain Marvel kicking ass, both emotionally and physically, in well signposted but enjoyable ways, literally almost every character you've ever met having a moment. It's a messy but epic baton pass in the form of an angsty portal-powered mega battle. And we're not going to lie, we've watched those audience reaction videos and they too are a thing of joy. 7. Captain Marvel 2019. Marvel's biggest mistake in the entire MCU canon, so far, was not commissioning Captain Marvel sooner. The film, which is set in the past, sees the rise of Marvel as she discovers her origin story and develops her powers. The only real flaw in the film is that it doesn't convincingly explain what happened to Marvel between the end of the title and what's to come years later in Endgame. 6. Iron Man 2008. The first MCU title is still one of the best. Released way back in 2008, Iron Man debuted just a year after the first iPhone was introduced. At the time Thanos was just a tiny thought in the bigger MCU world. Despite its age, the title hasn't aged terribly. Stark's trademark stubbornness and arrogance is peppered throughout the film and only increases when he breaks free from his kidnappers and creates the first metallic suit. From there, Stark's legacy is assured. 5. Ant-Man 2015. Who doesn't love a heist movie? Paul Rudd's MCU debut acted as something of a palate cleanser after the heavy, literally earth-shattering events of Age of Ultron. Rudd plays Scott Lang, a reformed criminal who teams up with Hank Pym, Michael Douglas, and his daughter, Evangeline Lilly, to keep Pym's shrinking technology from falling into the wrong hands. The film's depiction of quantum physics wouldn't hold much water at CERN, but it's terrific fun, thanks in part to Michael Peña's star turn as Lang's former cellmate Luis. 4. Spider-Man: Homecoming 2017. The third attempt to bring a new take on Spider-Man to screens in just 15 years, Spider-Man: Homecoming could easily have felt a bit been there done that, but director John Watts and lead actor Tom Holland breathed new life into the superhero, making Spidey feel modern, fresh and really quite charming. The introduction of Downey Jr.'s Iron Man as a key character in the plot situates the film nicely into the broader Marvel Cinematic Universe without feeling heavy-handed, and the balancing of Spider-Man's action-packed adventuring with Parker's everyday high school drama makes for a character that is more relatable than previous iterations. There's plenty of cool web-slinging and day-saving, but it's the humanity of the film that shines through to propel it to a top spot on our list. 3. Black Panther 2018. With Black Panther, director Ryan Coogler broke the superhero film mold in many respects, elevating the genre in such a way that it managed to please both fans and critics, to the extent that it became the first superhero film to be nominated for an Academy Awards Best Picture gong earlier this year. Basically, everything about this film is just great: the casting, the costumes, the plot, the performances. The setting of the secretly technologically advanced nation of Wakanda is a true cinematic treat, and late Chadwick Boseman's T'Challa is matched by an unusually three-dimensional villain in the form of Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger, whose backstory gives pause for thought beyond a simple, good versus evil, narrative. Add in multiple female characters who each have more substance than most superhero films' entire casts put together, and Black Panther is the perfect example of how good a Marvel film can be. Sadly, the Black Panther actor died on the 28th of September at his home. 2. Thor: Ragnarok 2017. Taika Waititi's Thor, as it shall be known in future cinephile circles, came close to the top spot because it is, quite simply, a masterpiece. A spacey, day-glow, Gen-lol-a-minute masterpiece. Switching up the sometimes grating Marvel sass, and the not-quite-working Thor formula, for something heaps more awkward and genuinely odd, Ragnarok is postmodern but not in a wanky way and by far the funniest Marvel movie to date. Cate Blanchett's villain Hela doesn't get the zingers, sure, but Tessa Thompson's Valkyrie is a drunken delight, and well, then there's Jeff Goldblum. Every detail of the story, of Thor and Hulk's side mission and the defense of Asgard, has been meticulously put together in the manner of a trippy indie film, all the more impressive when you consider this is a huge Disney flick. 1. Guardians of the Galaxy 2014. From its opening sequence, where Chris Pratt's Star-Lord dances through an abandoned alien vault on a distant planet to come and get your love, it was clear that Guardians of the Galaxy would bring something truly alien to the MCU. It was not a well-known comic, but the film provided a much-needed shot of humor and color into a series that was in danger of becoming a little too serious following the events of The Winter Soldier. With a soundtrack of 70s and 80s bangers, and the charismatic Pratt at the helm of a band of entertaining misfits, it became an instant fan favorite. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe for more videos. Also hit the notification button to get notified of our new videos.